Here we are almost at the end of the semester. The next to the last video I'm making is on emphasis and subordination. Now it sounds funny, but you can't have one without the other, because whenever you have something that's emphasized, there's going to be something that more or less is de-emphasized, but still a very, very important part of the whole composition. Here we have an older gentleman teaching a young boy how to play the banjo. Dark figures, kind of centered, maybe not so much, and we have these dark objects over here. But then in the background, we have this very, very light background with just a single dark object here, light coming in from a window over here. But this white plays as an important part of the image as the dark figures, because it sets up a contrast. It wraps the figures around. It gives them more importance, or they're emphasized more because of these light areas. In addition, we have atmospheric perspective, as we can see the background softens as we go away from the figures. Asymmetrical balance, because the figures are not in the center, maybe more approximate than asymmetrical, but still the asymmetrical format. Here's another one. This is Vincent van Gogh's Bedroom at Arles. He's anticipating the arrival of Gauguin. Here's a self-portrait of himself, a portrait of Gauguin. And as we talked about in class, they almost seem topsy-turvy. The way he's placed the paintings on the wall and these other paintings, they look like they're going to cave in. Then we have this floor that seems to be going back, so it almost looks like all of the chair and the table and this chair are going to come sliding right off into the viewer. But it is the bed. The bed is what is really emphasized, because he has used foreshortening, and we've talked about that, how this area is going to be larger. It's the closest to us, and then it diminishes very quickly to the headboard. Linear perspective, we've talked about that before. Certainly asymmetrical balance, the informal balance, analogous colors, and as I just said, the linear perspective. Isolation is another form of emphasis. If you isolate something, think about warning signs, prohibited signs. Those are single. Those are one message. And that's what Fritz Scholder's doing in these images. He is isolating this image. Metaphorically, you could say setting him apart from other people, from a setting, from some sort of context. Same thing with this Indian, wrapped in an American flag. Scholder's goal in his images of Indians was to emphasize the stereotypes people have of the Southwest and Native American Indians. And he did that by singularly representing them in these images. Another one of Scholder's examples of American Indians is called Indian with a Beer Can. This one is somewhat different. This one we saw really little or no background. This one he's broken up the background with those complementary colors. The purple and then that ochre, I'm going to call that a yellow. Of course, those are complementary colors. The figure itself is abstract. The face, the hands, red skins, again, a stereotypical representation of an Indian. But then we have, this Indian has a hat on, much like a cowboy. He has on what would appear to be a cowboy shirt, drinking a Coors beer. He's got some very strong contrast here, the hat and the shirt. The shirt is what really pulls us in, though, and even in its abstract nature, even though it's broken up by some of these other colors, it's the white shirt against the dark red skin, against the kind of lopsided hat that really makes this image so interesting. I'm not sure if I would call this symmetrical. It may be. You don't necessarily have to have the two sides identical to be symmetrical, but just the way he has the Indian placed almost in the center, so maybe approximate symmetry, you might want to call that. Emphasis through repetition. This is Standish Backus, watercolorist, worked for the Navy, did some watercolors of scenes from post-Hiroshima. The Navy at the time saw the value of having artistic interpretations of the devastation and of the destruction besides just photos. And so that's how Standish Backus spent part of his life. He is a watercolorist. Watercolor, you only get one chance. You can't go back in. You can't layer colors on like you can with oil paintings. So that's the other thing to be admired about this picture. Emphasis through repetition. These slats in the fence, repeat, repeat, repeat. And as they get further away from us, they get closer together. So, and plus, you can see the fence goes down. So we can imagine a vanishing point out here somewhere. We have the fence going away from us here. So maybe another vanishing point here. The houses seem to diminish in size, which we know they probably don't, to some vanishing point down here. And then we have the church, which sits facing us. Atmospheric perspective again with that softening of the background. So in summary, emphasis, we talked about the use of placement, we talked about isolation, and we talked about repetition.